What if events went differently in Spider-Man Far From Home? What if Peter Parker had the Venom symbiote? Welcome back, my fellow watchers of the multiverse, to part 5 of What If Tom Holland's Spider-Man had the Venom symbiote in the MCU timeline. We have explored the changes within this timeline, and it's very important to check out the previous videos. The link will be in the description down below. That being said, before we dive into it, the month of March has exclusive t-shirts and hoodies. You can get the complete Symbiote Saga merch on sale now, or the Spider-Man 4 to 10 hoodies. Promo codes will be on all of my social media such as Discord, Reddit, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, the list goes on. This is your only chance because once they're gone, they're gone. They're not going to be coming back after the month of March. So that being said, let's dive right into the next part. This reality has been a very interesting one, as different events have and will take place. All of these variations can be pinpointed to the arrival of the Venom symbiote. In this reality, Tony Stark sacrifices his life to save the universe, but something shocking takes place after that, because of the symbiotic suit that he wears before snapping his fingers. Come on and let us watch and see how these sequence of events unfold before our own very eyes. Peter was sure that he had never been more grateful to see a swirl of dust in his life. It was not actually dust, but it was miniature atoms of that of Tony Stark, starting to reform. Something was very wrong though. They moved and reshaped themselves way too slowly, and Peter immediately had a plan. Tony Stark had created a reinstatement pod to aid symbiotes to reform and heal faster. Peter immediately modified the pod and had placed it on top of where Tony was reinforming. The process became faster, but it was still very slow. Peter had taken 23 days to rematerialize when Thanos had blipped him because of Venom, but he was sure that Tony would not take more than that because he actually wore the gauntlet. All that radiation that passed through him, it's a miracle that he is still alive, Peter said, and Venom agreed. Peter decided that it was time that he let Tony reform and he focused on his personal life, like Tony would have wanted him to. Peter would leave the monitoring process on, in the capability hands of Miss Pepper, who had a romantic relationship with Mr. Stark. Peter knew that his Aunt May must have been worried sick about him, because he had not left Tony's side since the battle. They secretly transferred the pod to a secret chamber, and only a few people knew about Tony reforming, as even Nick Fury did not know about it. As Peter thought about Aunt May, he also remembered Ned, and thought about how his best friend must be coping. Former best friend, Venom said, enraged, as he was the self-acclaimed best friend of Peter Parker. Peter paid him no mind as he went on to think about Michelle Jones, MJ. One thing the blip had taught Peter was that life was too unpredictable and short. As he faded, he had thought about missed opportunities that he was scared to pursue, and MJ was one of them, as Peter had a crush on her. Snap back to reality, Mr. Loverboy, Venom said, and a scornful laughter, as he told Peter that the idea of MJ dating him was unlikely, because according to him, she was not on Parker's class. Peter refused to be undeterred though, as he made up his mind that the first thing he would do when he saw her was to profuse his love for her. Peter quickly stood up from where he was watching Mr. Stark slowly reform, and he said his goodbyes as he left to the outside world. The outside world was great. It seemed like the blip had really softened up people, including the bad guys, as the crime rates had drastically reduced. Peter heard different praises about the heroes. After the war, Captain America had gone back in time to spend his special days with Peggy Carter. When he returned, he had given his shield to Wilson. Then he passed away. There was Black Widow, who had sacrificed her life for the Soul Stone, and then Tony Stark. Peter's heart throbbed when he heard how the people regarded Tony Stark as a hero. "You truly deserve it, Mr. Stark," Peter said. After the war, Peter was sure that there was nothing, as the Avengers, as half of them were dead, or currently incapacitated. But it did not worry Peter, as the world seemed free from threats at the moment. Peter had borrowed one of Tony's jets, contrary of Mr. Happy Hogan, and he had made his way back to Queens. On his request, Happy had dropped him off on his high school block. Peter had a particular fondness for the buildings, and he stood there and reflected on his actions for a while. Then he swung home. For a long time for him, swinging through the city, Peter had never seen it so peaceful. Peter arrived at Ned's house first, and he was so grateful that he was alive. Ned literally screamed his lunch out as Venom startled him with his entrance. After spending some time with him chatting, mostly about what had happened in the war, and also telling him about Michelle Jones, Peter decided that it was time he went home to see Aunt May. Peter immediately left after saying his farewells to Ned. Aunt May was so delighted to see Peter as she actually thought she had lost him, but she had been comforted by Happy. Peter was a little suspicious of their relationship, but he did not say anything even though Venom was urging him to. Peter quickly cooked up a story about his disappearance, and Aunt May brought it rapidly without even asking permanent questions. Peter assured that she was just too happy to see him again, as she thought she had lost him. Aunt May, Peter, and Happy thereafter had dinner, and it was a very satisfying one. Peter was happy to be home with Happy Hogan and Aunt May, even though he still did not get why Happy was still around. After the events of the day, Peter was exhausted and he quickly crashed on his bed as he passed out with a smile on his face. I don't think the world's gonna suffer another outworldly threat again for a while, Peter thought before he went to sleep. Peter was very wrong. Life had been going very well for the world, as there hadn't been any anomalies in a while. And Nick Fury seriously wished it would stay like that forever, but even he knew that it was impossible. The first strike happened in Mexico, and Nick Fury and Maria Hill were there to investigate it. Fury had noticed several disruptions around the area, and he quickly informed Maria, and they decided that they would have to be there to witness it. Currently, they were in the city of Antanko to investigate it. Fury quickly filled Maria Hill in by telling her that the locals had said that the disruption had a face on it, and soon after that, they were live witnesses to an unidentified creature. Nick Fury and Maria Hill were petrified by the sight of the monster, but they decided that they needed to stop it. Nick and Maria quickly swung into action, but all of their arsenals seemed to have no effect on the creature, who went about destroying things in the city. Just when all hope was about lost, an unidentified person came into play, and with the help of Nick Fury and Maria Hill, the creature was swiftly dispatched. After the battle, the unidentified man introduced himself as Quentin Beck, and he told Nick Fury and Maria Hill his story. Nick Fury knew that according to the situation report he got from Quentin, that the attacks were just starting, and he hoped that they would be able to contain it as the world was short on heroes. Nick Fury quickly remembered a hero that the world still had, and he immediately put a call across to him. Nick Fury called for Spider-Man. Parker had been ignoring Fury's calls as he decided that he wanted to concentrate on his personal life and have none of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s problems, as Tony Stark's problems were weighing him down. Only a few people knew that Tony was currently reforming, and Peter liked it that way. But it came with a downside, as a lot of people were pressuring him, asking him if he would be the next Iron Man, and all sorts of questions. Personally, Peter thought that even if Tony had passed on, he would not have the heart to carry on his legacy as the Iron Man. This is because you're a weakling, Venom snarled, and Peter quickly defended himself. They went back and forth in Peter's mind until Venom quickly alerted him. Here she comes, Venom signaled to Peter when the last word laced with venom. Peter was waiting up for Michelle Jones, as he had been trying to date her, but his actions had all seemed futile. Venom blamed it on his lack of manliness, but Peter did not allow it to get to him. Parker quickly went to make his move, but he was suddenly cut off by Brad Davis, his competitor for MJ. Peter attributed 100% of his failures for not winning over Michelle Jones to Brad Davis, but Venom claimed that he did so, in order to help him sleep at night because he was a failure. Peter had actually developed a mental trash for Venom on relationship matters, as all of the advice of Venom on how to get Michelle Jones had been the most embarrassing moments of his life. Peter cringed as he remembered how he had worn a biker's attire with sunshades inside the cafeteria, and he had bounced his head off the wall because Venom told him that women loved bad boys. Peter's food had been splashed around the place and everyone erupted in laughter, and he could not bring his eyes to meet MJ. Peter cleared his thoughts as he remembered his resolve on the roof of his Queens high school to be more darling and achieving his dreams, and one of them turned out to be Michelle Jones. Peter heaved a deep sigh of breath and went in to talk to Michelle. It was Peter's lucky day as he was successful in winning Michelle over, even though most of it was due to the fact that Midtown's tech was organizing a trip to Europe due to the kids that were erased during the blip. Peter had been counted as a person that was erased in the blip, even though he was brought back by Venom. Peter was in very high spirits, as he really had high hopes for the trip and how he could forward things with Michelle, but Venom was still very pessimistic. The attack had happened again in Morocco, and Nick Fury, along with Maria Hill and Quentin Beck, had pulled their resources to destroy it. This time, it was an Air Eternal creature. Nick Fury started seeing a pattern, as the first creature was Earth-related, and now this one was air-related. Fury had been consistently trying to contact Parker, but it proved futile as all of his calls kept getting redirected to Happy. Fury was getting infuriated, and he immediately called Happy Hogan. Happy tried making excuses for Parker, but Fury could see through it. Peter was avoiding him. Nick Fury directly asked Hogan if it was true that Peter was deliberately avoiding his calls and redirecting them to him, but as expected, Happy denied it. Nick Fury decided that he would need another plan to contact Peter Parker, as he would need all hands on deck. Currently, Quentin Beck had gone to intercept another threat with 2 spies, and Nick Fury needed to put an end to the anomalies for good. Peter's plans to actually bond with Michelle Jones during the trip turned out to be futile to the prediction of Venom. What made matters worse was that Peter's best friend, Ned, got a girlfriend after the bonding with the girl during the entire trip at Venice. Venom rubbed it in Peter's face as his friend accomplished what he could not in months, in just a few hours. Peter was feeling so downcast, and he stalked at the end of the class during the sightseeing, and he was glad that he had stayed there. A monstrous creature exploded out of the canals in Venice and started attacking the city. It was not until later that Peter knew that its name was Hydro Man. Because Peter was at the back of the class, he was able to sneak quite easily and transform into Venom to combat the monster. Peter tried fighting the monster, but it had no effect on the monster, and Venom voiced his concerns, but Peter was unrelenting. Peter kept up his attacks on the monster until Quentin Beck came and subdued the beast. Peter was in somewhat awe as he watched as Mysterio lured the monster from the canals and destroyed it. Venom was having none of it though, as he felt that something was not quite right. Venom then quietly sneaked out while the crowd's attention was on Quentin, and he transformed back to Peter, who swiftly rejoined the students as though he had not left for 1 second. What a day, Peter thought, as he did not even realize that his day was only beginning. On the night of the attack, the dreaded meeting with Fury finally approached. Peter was so shocked when he saw Nick Fury, but he tried not to show it, as he did not want Fury to know that he had been avoiding him. Nick Fury, after chatting with Peter, introduced Quentin Beck to him. Venom quickly went into a defensive position as he covered Peter Parker's face to shield his identity. Nick Fury downplayed all his hunches that Venom had by telling Peter that Quentin was a very trusted person who was helping him battle the elementals. Peter quickly apologized and called off Venom, who reluctantly withdrew to reveal Parker's face. Quentin Beck then told Peter that he came from an alternate reality, and so did the elementals. According to him, they had arrived on Earth after the blip, and 1 elemental was remaining, and that was Molten Man, due to make an appearance in Prague. Even though Quentin Beck's story of how the elementals had killed his family moved Peter, he declined Nick Fury's request to go and fight the elemental in Prague, using his school outing as an excuse. Nick Fury just smiled and allowed Peter to go, much to his surprise. After he had left, Nick Fury immediately changed the location of Peter's school to Prague. Though the trip had different plans, nothing would stop him now from fighting with us, Nick Fury thought, as he smiled. Peter could not believe what he had done. Nick Fury had given him an AI called Edith, embedded on the glasses as a gift from Tony. Nick Fury said that Tony directed that it should be given to Peter on his passing. Peter could not reject the gift without telling Fury that Tony was sort of alive, so he accepted it. Peter also got an upgrade on his suit, even though he had not tried out any features. On his first use of the AI, Peter had ordered an orbital drone strike to destroy the bus mistakenly in a feat of rage, as an effort to bond with MJ was yet again thwarted by Jones. Nick Fury was currently telling Peter off. Parker already knew all the things that Nick was telling him about the endangering his classmates, and he was truly sorry. Quentin Beck came over to comfort him, with much to the dislike of Venom, who wanted to rip his head off. Peter quickly left Quentin as he went to position himself for the mission. Hopefully, he would get to spend more time with Michelle Jones before the Elemental attacked, Peter told himself. The Elemental gave Peter some time and he spent it wisely. Peter had not been seeing Ned often because his girlfriend, Brant, had been taking most of his time. Peter saw Michelle Jones and he had hoped that he would bond more with her tonight. Peter's hopes were actually fulfilled and he got to talk with MJ, but it was very awkward as they spent their time complimenting each other. Venom was beyond relieved when Nick Fury radioed Peter to be in position. Venom told Peter that if he had spent one more second in the conversation, he would have self-destructed. Peter quickly departed, but not before telling Ned to provide an alibi for him and pinging the suspicion of Michelle, who secretly followed him out. Peter Parker, through the use of Edith, had confined his classmates in the State Opera, at the other end of the city, away from the Elemental attack. The Elemental Molten Man had chosen to attack during the Carnival of Lights, so Peter guessed it was not in a festival mood. As Parker transformed into the Venom symbiote, he noticed a difference in the color of his suit. It was now dark blue, and Venom quickly explained that it was part of the upgrade that Tony Stark made for him. The reason for the change of color was actually quite simple. Since Spider-Man's appearance in Venice, some of his classmates had gotten suspicious of what Spider-Man was doing there, all the way from Queens. If they got to know that Spider-Man also appeared in Prague, then it would confirm their suspicions that Spider-Man is one of them. Parker knew that if it happened, it would not take long before they narrowed it down to him, as he was always missing during a Spider-Man appearance. Quentin Beck suddenly flew beside Peter, making him clear his thoughts as they were about to combat the final and probably the most powerful elemental. Peter had never felt so useless. Everything he threw at the creature did not even faze it. It was only when Quentin Beck's powers seemed to have an effect on the creature. Peter's feelings of uselessness was made even worse when Ned and Brant were in danger at the top of the Ferris wheel. Peter had just managed to barely save them. Ned immediately dubbed him Night Monkey, to clear all suspicions of him being the black-suited Spider-Man. And if Peter had not been so serious, he would have actually laughed. To end the battle, Quentin Beck had performed a move called the Kamikaze Attack to take out the Elemental as his own department. Peter's heart quickly skipped, even as he rushed to check up on Quentin, who was fortunately not dead, but injured. Peter was awed by the man, but Venom thought there was something off about him, and the whole scenario, even though he could not place it. Peter was present when Fury told Quentin to come to Berlin and build a new Avengers, and Peter thought that he deserved it, even though the only words Nick Fury had for him were discouraging words. Quentin Beck invited Peter for a drink after the battle, and he figured that he could not say no, so he accepted the invitation, and they both walked down to have a drink. "What have I done?" Peter screamed, in sudden realization to Michelle Jones. Currently, Peter was on the Charles Bridge with MJ, and she had shown him a piece of technology which his web had snagged last night in the fight. The piece of technology was actually a projector of the illusion of Molten Man. The attack on Prague was an illusion. Suddenly everything became clear to Peter as he realized that Quentin Beck had been playing them all this time, including Nick Fury. All of the attacks were illusions and Quentin was really the bad guy. Peter was so enraged at himself because last night, when he and Quentin had gone out for a drink, they had thoughts about responsibilities, and Peter thought about it and how he wanted to focus more on his personal life. So he gave Edith to Quentin, despite the warnings of Venom. Now Peter could see that it was all a ploy by Quentin to get the AI. Parker quickly revealed to MJ that he was Spider-Man, and after collaborating with her and Ned for an alibi, he quickly left for Berlin to warn Nick Fury. Quentin Beck was on top of the world as his ploy to get Edith had worked successfully. Quentin had been so full of rage when he heard that Tony Stark had given the inexperienced and extremely immature Peter Parker Edith, but it was okay now as he had it. Who's laughing now, Tony? Quentin said in amusement to himself and his employees as well, as they were discarded former members of Stark Industries. Quentin had immediately told them of his plan to cast a grand illusion at London, and that would put him at the Avengers level to become the new Iron Man. Then, he discovered that Peter now knew his secret via a video feed. The rage that Quentin had for Parker was now revived as Spider-Man was on his way to Berlin to warn Nick Fury. Quentin decided that it was time to end him and every one of his friends, and he knew his secret identity. Quentin quickly went to work as he had to move fast to intercept Parker. In Berlin, Parker attempted to reveal the identity of Beck and his plans to Fury and Hill, but he was intercepted by Beck. Quentin immediately ordered a drone to shoot Nick Fury, and Peter was in disbelief. The office building suddenly vanished into a mid-construction building, and Beck started tormenting Peter with various illusions. When it became almost too much for Parker, he was saved by Nick Fury, who shot Beck in the back. Fury then proceeds to ask for the names of the people who knew about Quentin Beck. Peter suddenly smiled and lunged at Fury. "Gotcha," Venom snarled, as he tore into Fury, who turned out to be Quentin in disguise. The color of the environment changed as Venom punched and pounded on him. Suddenly, drones started firing at Venom, and he had to pull out from beating Quentin. Quentin then ended up disappearing. The environment now looked as if it was glitching, as Venom had destroyed some virtual parts of Quentin's armor. "How did you know I was the one?" Quentin said, shaking, as he tried to catch his breath. "It's called spider sense," Peter shouted back at him. Venom had also helped out, because he could sense living organisms too. Quentin told Peter that it did not matter, because he would soon be dead. Venom just laughed, and he vanished completely. Within seconds, he rematerialized with Quentin in his clutches. "You're not the only one that can hide," Venom said, as he delivered a swift punch that knocked Mysterio out, even as he thanked Tony Stark for the camouflage upgrade in his suit. Peter Parker had gone to see how Tony Stark was, and he was happy to see that he was reforming his body parts. It now remained to the internal organs, and Tony Stark would fully be back. Peter had narrated all that had happened to Tony, and he left Edith at his pod side because he did not feel like he was worthy to have it. As Peter left Tony, worthy or not, what he saw on the several billboards left him shattered. Quentin was in court, and he explained with all of his strength Peter Parker was Spider-Man, even as showing evidence. Peter felt his world crumble, but Venom felt very elated by the news. "It was about time the world would get to know me," Venom hissed. And that is going to be What If Spider-Man Had the Venom Symbiote in Spider-Man Far From Home. What did you think of this Marvel's What If? And if you guys did enjoy it, do make sure to check out the previous parts if you haven't already. This was a key part within it, and we're going full circle, my fellow watchers. I do want to say, do you remember when I did What If Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man had the symbiote in Spider-Man 2? Well, I do want to say that that will be connected to the Spider-Man No Way Home events. So now is your chance to finally get yourself caught up with the complete Symbiote Saga with Andrew Garfield's and also Tobey Maguire's, as we're going to be entering No Way Home, and we're going to be connecting all of the parts. So it's going to be a really interesting Marvel's What If fanfiction. And I do want to say, make sure you get the exclusive merch right now. It's going to be only happening for the month of March. I have hoodies and I have t-shirts that have Spider-Man 4 through 10 designs as well as the Symbiote Saga. So, what did you think of this Marvel's What If? Do make sure to follow me on Instagram to see the latest updates, as well as the Discord and so many other places. Thank you so much for tuning in, my fellow watchers, and I'll see you in the next What If. Peace out.